What is the mass of water in grams in a sample of hydrated salt of mass 10 grams heated till it gets a new color and a mass of 8.3 grams? Good. Okay, what is hydrated salts? Just look here now. What does it mean, hydrated salt? Hydrated salt is a salt. Good, is a salt. Like magnesium sulfate, like calcium sulfate. Okay, this one now is a salt. But this salt now, there are molecules of water attached to the salt. When there are molecules of water attached to this salt, we call this salt hydrated salt. Good. So this hydrated salt now, when we go to find its mass, so the mass of hydrated salt, it represents the mass of the salt plus the mass of what? Of water, which is H2O. Okay, so that means the mass now of hydrated salt, it represents the mass of the salt plus the mass of water. Why? Because hydrated salt, it has water molecules attached to it. Good. So when they tell me now in this question now, what is the mass of water? Good. In a sample of hydrated salt, that its mass is 10. So that means the mass 10 here, as you said, it represents the mass of the salt plus the mass of water. Okay, this hydrated salt, if we heat it, like if we heat this one, if we heat it here, when we heat it, what will happen? What will happen is this water part will evaporate. Good. So that means part of the mass of hydrated salt will be evaporated. So what will be left? What will be left is just the mass of the salt. Good. And this one now, this salt, when it becomes without water, we call it what? Anhydrous water, anhydrous salt. So hydrated salt, when we heat it till its color it changes, in this case it becomes anhydrous salt, which means salt without water. But hydrated salt, it means salt with water. So now, this one now, the mass is 10, and it represents, we said, the salt and the water 10. If we heat it now, and new color, or we got new color here, that means now the part of water is evaporated. The mass of water is evaporated. Now, if we see now the new mass that is here, as you see, which is 8.3, it represents the mass of the salt alone without water. Okay, now how can I get the mass of water? So the mass of water here, the mass of water in this case, it represents the whole mass minus what? Minus the mass of salt. Minus the mass of what? Of salt alone. So that means the mass of water, it represents the whole mass, which is 10. After we evaporated the 10, it becomes just 8.3. So that means if we subtract it here, you will get what? 1.7. So 1.7 is the mass that it was evaporated due to heating, and it represents the mass of what? Of water, and you got to choose it like what? 1.7 as the answer.